الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين الصلاة والسلام على رسوله محمد وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب هب لي من الصالحين فبشرناه بغلام حليم آمنت بالله صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه. All praises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator, controller of this entire universe. May the choicest blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon our Nabi, Nabiullah, Habibullah, Sarkar Medina, Ruh Hasina, Nabi Kareem, Rauf al-Rahim, Rahmatan lil Alameen, Sayyid al-Mursaleen, Khatam al-Nabiyyin, Imam al-Anbiya, Ahmad al-Mujtaba, Janab Muhammad Arbi, Muhammadur Rasulullah, Sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallam. Elders, youngers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah ta'ala, I was a little bit worried at this time, maybe nobody will show, maybe there'll be one or two people, but alhamdulillah ta'ala, it is a weekday and many people do get up early, and for those people who are obliged to go to work, then alhamdulillah, I was sure that there will be somebody at least turning up for this Jamaat, alhamdulillah. Today is a blessed day in the calendar for the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Today is the day of 10th of Zulhijjah, and a very blessed day for the Ummah of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showers down His blessings. It is a very, very spiritual time for the Ummah and the Muslimin, alhamdulillah ta'ala. Today, this month, Zulhijjah, gives us many great lessons and beautiful things historically, from a historical perspective. We have the great journey of the Hajj. We have the sacrifice in the Qurbani of Hazrat Ibrahim Khalilullah alayhi salam. And we have the takbir of the Sharif. And many, many beautiful things, alhamdulillah, about this month, which makes it very, very spiritual. It gives it a sort of great buzz to this time of the year, the last month of the Islamic calendar. And alhamdulillah, so many things which have sort of taken place, and so many things for us to remember, particularly on this day. And more specifically than anything else, the great Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Hazrat Ibrahim Khalilullah alayhi salam. He was one of the greatest prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was from amongst the ulil azm, from the 5 greatest prophets of Allah. And Hazur alayhi salatu wasalam, he was intensely proud and happy with Sayyidina Ibrahim Khalilullah alayhi salam. And he used to actually refer to us as the nation of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Many, many times we see zikr of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran itself. And according to Sunnah, 73 mentions of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. So this is immense. And if we look at the stories, and if we look at the trials and the tribulations that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam had to undergo in his life, they really are. Allah Akbar, his faith was absolutely unwavering, his conviction in Allah Rabbul Alameen. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, from the many things which happened at the beginning of his life, from the many tests which he had to undergo and bear, he, at a late age in his life, went to and he emigrated to Syria by the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when he arrives there in Syria, and the ulama say, and in particular, Hazrat Imam Madhuddin ibn Kathir al-Damishki, he writes that in his book, The Stories of the Prophets, he says that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam was 86 years of age. 86 years of age. And at this point in his life, he makes dua to Allah and he asks Allah. He says, Oh Allah, he says, Rabbi habli minas salihin. He said, Oh Allah, he asked for a pious progeny. He asked for a pious child. Rabbi habli from minas salihin, from that who is pious. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered Ibrahim alayhi. Think about this, 86 years of age, Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was patient in this respect. And if a Prophet of Allah raised his hands and made dua before Allah Rabbul Alameen, well of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have accepted the dua. But this is the patience of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. 86 years of age, and then he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Oh Allah, when you grant me a child, Allah, when you grant me a child, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then confirms in the Quran. He says to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he confirms in the Quran, فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, oh, good news for you, Ibrahim alayhi salam. We will grant you a son, a ghulam, he will be very forbearing. Halim, this will be one of his qualities, he will be very forbearing. And this is the gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam in the form of Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam. And he was also a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was also a Nabi. And I will give you some more about this, inshallah al-Aziz, to prove that he was a Nabi. Then we understand in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants in old age Ibrahim alayhi salam a child. He grants him a son. And as this son begins to grow, and he's still very young, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he inspires Ibrahim alayhi salam with a dream. Now, and we learn this from the Quran, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, he says to his son, he says, oh my son, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ, when this child became مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ, when he became the age of running, when he became old enough that he began running with his father. In other words, doing the tasks with his father, he was of age. And there's ikhtilaf about this amongst the ulama, about the age of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. Some say he was 7 years old, and there's another famous narration to say that he was 13 years old. But what we learn from this is valid ikhtilaf amongst the ulama. But what we learn from this, he was still very young, he was still a child. Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, he was still a young child. And after 86 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants this prophet of a child to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, he has this dream. And he has this dream and he says to his son, he says, قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي, he said, أَنِّي أَزْبَهُكَ. He said, I have had a dream. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me a dream. And in that dream, I've seen myself doing zabha of you, doing your qurbani. And he says, Fanzur maza tara. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he says, Fanzur, he says, what's your opinion on this? Maza tara. This is dialect between Ibrahim Halilullah and his son, Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam. Look at the adab in this. And he said, Kala ya bunayya, he said, oh my son. Look at the pyar in the way that Ibrahim Halilullah speaks to him. Look at the adab that he speaks to his son with. He says, Kala ya bunayya. He said, inni, and he said, indeed that I've had a dream, and I've seen myself doing your anni azhabuka azbahuka. I see myself doing your zibha. And then he says, Fanzur maza tura. He says, Ya Ismail alayhi salam, what is your opinion on this? He asks his son for his opinion. In the Quran Kareem, this is being captured in the Quran Kareem. And subhanAllah, look at the reply of Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam. Look what he says to his father. He says, Kala ya abati fa'al ma tu'mar. He said, oh my father. He said, oh my, look, he says, Abba, Kala Abba tif'al. He said, oh my father, do as you have been commanded. Do as you have been commanded. Satajiduni insha'Allah min as-sabirin. He said, you will find me insha'Allah. He said, by the will of Allah. He said, you will find me to be from amongst the patient. You will find me to be from amongst the, oh my father, do as you've been commanded. The ulama say about this, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, Khalilullah, he was a Nabi, he was a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the rule of a prophet is, when he has a ru'ya, when he has a dream, it's not like our dream. The dream of a prophet is law, is wahi. He must do as he's commanded, or whatever he sees in his dream, this is a reality, this is shariat, this is law. When Ibrahim Khalilullah alayhi salam seen this dream, he knew the command was that he must do zibha of his son, that he must do qurbani, he must sacrifice his son. He knew this. But Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, even as a young child, he submitted to this command of his father. Why did he submit to this command of his father? Straight away, without any hesitation. Because he was also a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was also a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he heard this dream of his father, he knew this ru'ya was law of Allah. This was hukm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore Hazrat Ibrahim Khalilullah alayhi salam, look at the adab, look at the way that he still asks his son, look at the muhabbat between them. And I ask you this question, Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, look at the way that he responded to his father. Who taught Ismail alayhi salam this adab? Who taught him this respect for his father? Which madrasa, which school did Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam study in to learn this adab for his father? And this manner of speaking to his father, and this submission to Allah Rabbul Alameen. This was the nizam of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. This was the tarbiyat of the Prophet of Allah, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, the great grandfather of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this was the nizam of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, he submitted to this. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains in the Quran, فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَا وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينَ. He said, and they submitted to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, he takes Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, he places him to the ground on his forehead, and then he takes the knife, and he's ready to do the qurbani and strike at his neck. And they said, Ibrahim Khalilullah, Wallahi lazim, just imagine this for a second. No children you have. 86 years of age, you begged Allah, oh Allah, Rabbi habli min as-salihin. Grant me a pious child. Allah grants you one son. And then Allah says, do qurbani of this son. Allah. Then Allah says, do qurbani of this son. Without any hesitation, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he submits to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He presents himself. He presents his son in qurbani. Wallahi lazim, just for 1 second, just imagine this. For those of you who have children, for those of you who have grandchildren, just imagine closing your eyes 1 second and thinking of that child and holding. If Allah had asked you to do this, how difficult, wallahi lazim, of a task this would have been. How difficult of a task this would have been. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, he explains, when Ibrahim alayhi salam is trying to cut at the throat, when he's trying to cut at the throat, the knife isn't cutting the throat of Ismail alayhi salam. It's not cutting the throat of Ismail alayhi salam. Because although he's trying to fulfill the hukm of Allah, the qudrat of Allah wanted something else. The power of Allah wasn't allowing the throat to be cut. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the heavens, he sent Jibreel Amin alayhi salam, and they replaced Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam with a ram with horns, a white ram according to the ulama. And that was slain on behalf of Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, he sees this, he says, وَنَدَّيْنَاهُ Anya Ibrahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Humne nida ki Ibrahim ko. We did nida upon Ibrahim. Oh Ibrahim, you've become successful in your test. You've completed the ru'ya. Fakat sadaqta ru'ya. You've completed and fulfilled the vision. You've completed the vision. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Ibrahim alayhi salam. Kya baat hai, subhanallah. You know, there's one thing, you know, the Sahaba Kareem radiallahu ta'ala, in their life, they said, somebody said, Salamun alallahi, salam be upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, La taqulu salamun alallahi. He said, there is no salam for Allah. Do not say salam for Allah. Why? Because Allah is salam. Allah is salam. Allah is the source of peace. From Allah we take salam. From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we take salam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He talks about Ibrahim Halilullah alayhi salam's sacrifice. He extols it. And He says, and He mentions that this was an azim test upon Ibrahim Halilullah alayhi salam. And He confirms his success in this. Alhamdulillah ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He says, Salamun ala Ibrahim. Kya maze ki baat hai. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Salam upon this Prophet of mine, Ibrahim alayhi salam. Salam be upon him for what he did. Allahu Akbar. We are learning from Surah As-Safat in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extolling this great Nabi of his, Ibrahim Halilullah alayhi salam. His great sacrifices in his life were many, and he was tested in many ways and in many circumstances. His story is, alhamdulillah, immense. But time doesn't allow. But on this day we narrated the relevant story of Qurbani.
10 past.
10 past. So on this day we related the story of Qurbani, which is relevant because this time of year is the time of year that we all offer Qurbani. And in the sunnah of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And this is wajib upon us for anybody who can afford it or anybody who has the relevant nisab level. Now this is equivalent to £300. If you have £300, for the year, you have enough to give Qurbani. And we should give Qurbani, and we should try and give it to some of the most impoverished parts of the world where people are struggling, people need Qurbani more. In places like Palestine, Iraq, Syria, things like this. Inshallah, Allah gives the ability to do this. They're slightly more expensive because the meat there is more expensive. But know this, when you give in the way of Allah Rabbul Alameen, nothing will be detracted from you. And there's one thing I want to mention at this stage. There's a common misconception. If there's a house and you have a husband and a wife in the house, the husband needs to give his own Qurbani if he has the relevant amal. As I mentioned, the nisab, which is the same as zakat, so around about £300. And the wife must give her own. She must give her own from her own wealth if she possesses that same wealth. Okay? And even if you give it on her behalf, you must obtain her permission. And if she gives on your behalf, likewise she must obtain your permission. It is a separate obligation, and we must fulfill those obligations, inshallah ta'ala al-aziz. It is great reward to give Qurbani. There's a hadith of Tirmidhi Sharif that I was looking at the other day. Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala anha, she narrates, she says that the person that gives Qurbani in the way of Allah Rabbul Alameen, before a drop of blood from that sacrificial animal hits the ground, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives you for all of your sins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives you for all of your sins. Allahu Akbar. And the virtues of these great days of Dhul Hijjah are so immense, alhamdulillah. I'm sure people would have fasted yesterday for the day of Arafah, and alhamdulillah cleansed themselves of sins. We know from Sahih Hadith, that is forgiveness for the sins for the year before and the year after, alhamdulillah ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no doubt would have cleaned our slates for those people who endeavored to fast yesterday on the day of Arafah, alhamdulillah ta'ala. Ibrahim Khalilullah alayhi salam gave this great sacrifice in his life. He left his home, he left his family, he left the people that he grew up with. He sacrificed everything. He emigrated for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even then, his test did not stop. His sacrifices did not stop. And I say this to you, we give Qurbani, but don't let it just be a ritual. Of course, you will gain all the barakah associated with that, all the forgiveness, all the blessing in your barakah and in your wealth and your mal and your jan, you will receive all this. But the ulama often say this. They say we give qurbani with the sacrificial animal, but also give qurbani with your nafs. Give qurbani with your lowly carnal desires. On this day of Eid al-Adha, 10th Dhul-Hijjah, we should make many such sacrifices. This is a day of prosperity and barakah and blessing and celebration, but it doesn't mean this is a day off. We should work even harder on these days. You know, when we see our relatives who we don't speak to, or our friends or our neighbors who we're upset with, you know, encourage yourselves to involve yourselves in the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meet and greet people with happiness. Have a look of happiness on your faces. And you know, people you have not spoken to for years, or family members, break these things. Break these narazgis and these ikhtilafat. Say salam to them, go and embrace them, because this is the way of the Muslimin. This is the way of the Muslimin. And you know, Hazrat Salman Farsi radiallahu ta'ala an, somebody asked him one day, they said, what is your name? He said, Islam. He said, what is your father's name? He said, Islam. He said, what is your grandfather's name? He said, Islam. And they said to him, Kya baat hai, Islam? And his point was, Hazrat Salman Farsi radiallahu ta'ala, what he was trying to say is everything else afterwards, first is Islam, first is Islam, first is Islam. Islam comes first, everything else, put your differences aside, especially on these days. Watch, and I promise you, if you implement the sunnahs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam now, if you implement the sunnahs of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam, watch the barakah descend in your lives, inshallah ta'ala aziz. Hazrat Ibrahim Khalilullah alayhi salam, when he made this great sacrifice, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he affirmed a great barakah for him. And he said to him in the Quran, وَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقِ نَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, oh Ibrahim alayhi salam, we give you great news. As a result of this is in the Quran, this comes in Surah As-Safat. He says that we give you great news of a son. His name will be Ishaq. He will be a nabiyyan min as-salihin. He will be a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is a prophet of Allah, and he will be from those who are from the pious. Min as-salihin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted this on him. And you know, for those, I may as well mention this because it's relevant. The ulama say that there is also ikhtilaf. Some people say that, you know, the child that Ibrahim alayhi salam was sacrificing, some people say that maybe that was Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam. But we know this from the order of the Quran, Surah As-Safat. First the verses come about the sacrifice, then afterwards Allah gives glad tidings of Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam. And Hazrat Imam in Tafsir Jalalain, the Sahib, Imam Suyuti, Imam Jalaluddin Muhalli rahimahullah ta'ala, they confirm that this shows that Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam was the child that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put to this test, and you know, to be sacrificed in this way. And we also understand from Imam Madhuddin ibn Kathir al-Dimashqi in his Qasas al-Anbiya, he also says the same thing, that, you know, Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam was the glad tidings that Allah gave following you know, after the success of the situation with Zebah. So this is something to remember and bear in mind. And these were the two sons of Ibrahim Khalilullah alayhi salam. One point I mentioned to you, the days of Takbir Tashriq, as you are aware, from the Asr time of from the Asr time, from the Fajr time, yes, of the 9th of Dhul-Hijjah, the wajib element of Takbir Tashriq kicked in, which means after every Fard Salah, man and woman must aloud in an audible voice recite Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. Minimum once, this is wajib. And Imam Aini rahimahullah ta'ala says to recite it more times, this is barakah for you, and this is a great blessing for you. So we should definitely engage in doing this immediately after the Fard Salah. For the females in a slightly softer voice, but in the males in a more audible voice, inshallah al-aziz. Now, I'll tell you some of the sunnahs for, I'll just tell you something about this, inshallah, because we still have a couple of minutes. in case those of you wonder, this kalam of takbir tashriq, this is wajib upon us, and we must continue this to the 13th Dhul Hijjah. This is 10th today. On the 13th Dhul Hijjah till Asr time, it's wajib upon us with every single salah after the fard, just once that we recite this. That's the wajib element. It's necessary meaning wajib. It's just less than fard. So it's very important that we do this. We will be accountable if we miss that. Now, just so I can tell you a bit of the history about that, inshallah, the ulama narrate this. When Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was at the point of sacrificing his beloved son, Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, at that point, when the angels looked down at what was happening, they chanted Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. They were shocked at this happening of this great pious servant Ibrahim alayhi salam, what he was doing, the zibha. They said Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And Hazrat Ismail and Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, because he was a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he heard this shouting of the angels. He heard this chanting of the angels. And he became more in a state of jalal. His tawheed became more strengthened. And he said, La ilaha illallahu, wallahu akbar, Allahu akbar. He said this, Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, as he lay on the floor, he heard the angels, he heard his Baba alayhi salam, he heard his father alayhi salam chant this, and he wondered in his heart, he said, I wonder if Allah will accept me as this sacrifice in this respect. And he said, Walillahi alhamd. Subhanallah. This kalam that we take, this is the unified kalam of the angels, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam and Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam. And unified together we say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Walillahi alhamd. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala endorsed this statement, and this was given to the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on these days of Takbir Tashriq. I say this to you, a couple of sunnahs for this day, alhamdulillah ta'ala. Some of them differ from Eid al-Fitr, so it's key for you to know. Eid al-Fitr, the sunnah is to eat the sweet before the Eid Salah. But on this day, Eid al-Fitr, for those of you who already eaten, you'll be having a double. So you have to eat sweet after, according to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to have some sweet, preferably dates in odd numbers, after the Eid prayer. Now, for Eid Fitr, we inaudibly or in a low voice recite the Takbir Tashriq or Allahu Akbar when we come to the masajid, and we take a different route home. But for the day of Eid al-Adha today, we recite the Takbir Tashriq in a loud and audible voice, and again we take a different route home, and again in a loud voice we recite the Takbir Tashriq. It is sunnah to wear from your finest clothes, and to wear white clothes, and new clothes if possible, if you're able to afford that. But it should minimum be clean. We should have ittar or some kind of beautiful scent. You should wear that in abundance. Smiles on this day. We need to smile and greet the people and be happy in these respects. There's many such sunnah like this for the day of Eid, and we should implement this. There's great reward and great barakah in this, inshallah.